Coming up today, from life support to upright and walking, the message of gratitude from a man still on his road to recovery. Good morning, I'm Jessica Lovell, and welcome to the Morning Medical Update. Influenza and the complications that followed nearly killed Curtis Hazlitt. Keyword, nearly. ICU staff at another hospital said there wasn't much more they could do besides transfer him to the University of Kansas Health System. But even with higher level of care, his survival wasn't guaranteed.
They about lost him trying to get him from the ambulance to the room.
What started out as a fever and some short-windedness for Kurt Hazlitt soon turned into the fight for his life.
He told me that he was basically in respiratory failure and that if I had waited a couple more hours to bring him in, he wouldn't have made it.
Doctors told Kurt's wife, Valerie, he had pneumonia and it was dire. He would need to be transferred to the University of Kansas Health System.
The doctor literally came in and told us, he said, he is the sickest patient we have in this hospital right now. And I mean, that hit us hard because we're thinking KU.
The University of Kansas Hospital treats the sickest of sick and the most complex cases. Kurt needed the highest level of care.
By that time, on every machine you could think of, he was on full-time kidney dialysis because his entire body, all of his organs were shutting down.
Kurt would spend 16 days on a ventilator, clinging to life.
I would talk to him every day when he was unconscious and tell him I needed him to make it because I didn't want to do the next 30 years without him.
Kurt slowly started to improve, and after those days on a ventilator, he needed weeks and weeks of tough, daily inpatient rehab therapy.
4, can you make it 5?
Ooh, good job. Big step. There you go.
Exhale.
Good job.
Rehab with one big goal in mind: to walk his daughter down the aisle.
I just want to try to keep a positive attitude and do everything I can do to get back to normal.
Do you feel like your shoulders come up a little bit?
A little bit, yeah.
Kurt and Valerie say after nearly 2 months in the hospital, life at home will definitely be a new sort of normal.
You miss me? I'm going to get rid of a lot of projects and stuff that I want to do and get rid of a lot of stuff, and we're just going to live life every day, just enjoy instead of trying to do things. Instead of trying to fix things, we're just going to enjoy life.
Hug your family and tell them you love them because you just don't know when your last day is going to be.
And we are so happy that Kurt continues to improve and is finally out of the hospital and is able to be here with us today with his wife Valerie. And I know this is still such an emotional time for both of you. And just how are you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I can walk. I'm still above ground. That's what I always say, but lungs are weak, but I feel good, really good.
But you're here. Valerie,
yes.
How are you?
Good. Much better now that we're home.
Yes.
Much better knowing that he's progressing, and we've eliminated a lot of the medical equipment that he's had to use, and he's able to start being a little bit more independent again.
Well, we're just glad you're here, and thank you for sharing your story. And we're also so glad to be talking with a few of the ICU nurses that cared for Kurt. Bree Simmons and Abby Reinhardt are joining us here at the desk. Ladies, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We just simply ran out of space here at our desk. So Mason Lane is joining us from our Studio B. Mason, you're going to come out and join us here in a little bit. So we'll see you here in a few. But we're just so glad to just be reuniting all of you. And I know there were so many people that took care of you, but these were just a few of the nurses that made the top list to join us here today. But Bree and Abby, how often do you get to catch up with patients after they leave your care?
I could say you're maybe number 2 that I can think of that's come around and walked on our unit and just been like, you know, this is how I'm doing great, and I've recovered. It's just, you know, which is crazy. We just don't get it very often.
Because I bet once they leave, they're off and running and trying to get back to life.
Exactly. We only see them for a short amount of time while they're in the hospital. We see them for a very sick part of the time, and then they downgrade and go to the floor. And sometimes we go and visit them, but sometimes we don't get the chance. So definitely a privilege to be able to be here with you,
And then-
walking and talking.
I'm
and
sure, and smiling, and then you're on to taking care of the next sick patient. So we're so glad that you're all here together. Mason, what's it like seeing Curtis and Valerie this morning?
It's so exciting to see them this morning. I was the nurse who admitted Kurt when he came to the ICU, so seeing this full circle and seeing him walk is really, really exciting.
What a moment. Let's go back to the illness, back quite a ways, because Kurt, you were struggling to breathe when you went to that emergency room originally. Valerie, what could you see or hear back on that day that let you know that he was in distress?
Just the look of pure panic in his eyes when he couldn't catch his breath, and the fact that he was doubled over our kitchen table just trying to get enough breath to be able to talk to me and say, I can't do this. We've got to go. I need to go back to the hospital. And knowing that I was supposed to be going to work that day and I was sleeping in a different room because I didn't want to get sick. And when I came upstairs, I found that he'd been up all night suffering like that and didn't want to wake me because he knew I had to work. And just knowing he was going through that, and it was that hard on him. And then the thought of me going to work and leaving him, and they told me if I would have left him and waited 2 hours to bring him in, he might not have been here.
It was progressing so quickly.
Yes.
And Kurt, you have to go into a ventilator. Were you able to speak with your family those moments before being sedated? What do you remember?
Well, I don't remember a lot. I don't even remember going to the urgent care really too much, or the ER, but I do remember talking to my wife and my son. My daughter's a nurse at Children's Mercy. She was halfway back from Topeka, so I said, I need to call her and I want to talk to her in case I don't wake up from this. That was tough.
That's tough, yeah.
Yeah.
Valerie, what do you remember about the transfer to the health system? You said just the idea of it really hit you hard.
It did. When they started talking about transferring him, it was in the middle of a blinding blizzard, so my thought was, is it really that necessary that he be transferred out? And my sister-in-law kind of brought it to reality. She said, we've got to get him out of here. They've done all they can do. If he doesn't go to a bigger hospital, he might not make it. And just the thought of how fast he progressed. I'm like, we didn't even realize he was going to be admitted when we came in today, let alone be sent to Kansas City, to the biggest hospital in the area, and not know how long we were going to have to stay. So
knowing he was having to be transferred here, you knew it was serious.
I knew it was serious.
And with that blizzard, it made it difficult for the transfer.
Yeah.
There was some hiccups there, right?
Yeah, life flight wouldn't fly because of the weather conditions, and we don't know why, but for some reason, Riley County EMS refused to transport him by ambulance here, even though the doctor said it was a life or death situation, that they had to get him out of there or he wasn't going to make it. And he called in a favor to someone at the ambulance service in Topeka, and they came from Topeka, picked him up in Manhattan, and brought him here to KC.
Bree, people might not realize that some of our ICU patients actually start their care in another hospital's ICU. For you as a nurse, what's that process like, receiving a transfer, especially a critical transfer like Kurt was, from an outside hospital?
Yeah, so once the physician accepts placement, we have a placement team that will tell the charge nurse that we are getting a patient. And then it's our job to look through the nurses, the patient assignments, the open beds, and that day it was Mason. And then he will get report on the nurse that is taking care of him from the outside hospital. And in that meantime, usually it takes about 30 minutes if it's a local hospital, or 3 to 4 hours. I think it was about 3 in Kurt's case. And in that meantime, we will be setting up the room, making sure that our monitors are working, making sure there's IV pulls and medicine in the room, and just preparing as best as we can, communicating with the nurse practitioners and the physicians, their orders and respiratory, making sure the vent is set up. Just a lot of communication. And then once the patient gets there, the transport team gives a quick, brief overview of what happened in transport to the receiving nurse. And then it's all hands on deck from there. We have all the team comes in, and it's really a team effort to make it run as smoothly as possible.
Mason, what kind of care can the ICU here provide that outside hospitals just might not be able to do?
I think what's so great about our ICUs here at KU is we have such a big team. So we have physicians, nurse practitioners, nurses, respiratory, dietary, all of these people, we're all working together for the patient to the one goal of getting them better, and in Kurt's case, just stabilizing him and getting him to a place where, we can, work on other things and getting them, back to their normal.
Abby, when you first met Kurt, it certainly was touch and go. As we know, his family shared this photo of him with all types of equipment hooked up to him. Walk us through what we're seeing here.
I mean, from what I can see, obviously he's on the ventilator. He's got lots of pillows propped up. I'm sure he was swollen as all could be in this picture. He's got these, he's got SED sleeves on to prevent clots in his legs and some boots on his feet just to prevent any wounds on the feet. And obviously you can see the ventilator on the right side, and then he's got his pole to technically his left R, or his right R left. So he's got a lot going on just in that room just to take care of him and make sure he's doing okay.
And then he was restrained. Why was he restrained?
Even if we have a patient, say they're on a ventilator, they're on medication to keep them comfortable, to help with pain. They're restrained because sometimes people can wake up and we just don't want them to freak out in the situation that they're in. That doesn't mean that they're doing that on purpose. It is just a natural reflex to reach up and be like, I don't want this tube in my mouth, and that sort of thing. And so it's just for more safety than anything for the patient. So.
And then he wasn't moving much, so we think of bed sores. How do you prevent those type of injuries?
So for us, at least, we are, like I said, we're using those little booties that he did have on his feet to help prevent any sores like on the heels. We're turning every 2 hours, checking the skin multiple times a day, making sure he's got lots of barrier cream and like all that good stuff, and checking skin checks at least every shift if we can do that. So,
Valerie, as a partner's perspective, what do you remember about the ICU nursing team here?
They were phenomenal. I mean, just comparing them to the Manhattan Hospital is huge, just because we didn't know what to expect when we got here, and they're right, all hands on deck. I mean, literally there was probably 20 people in and out of his room the first 30 minutes we were here. But the nurses just were so caring and compassionate, and always talking to Kurt and talking him through everything they were doing, even though he was not conscious. Every time they came in the room to give him meds or move him or anything they did, Curtis, this is what we're doing. Kurt, we're going to move you. Kurt, we're giving you your heparin shot, whatever it was. They would talk him through it. And that was a comfort to us as family, just because not only are they talking to him and making him aware, but they were also letting us know as well as they were talking to him what was going on, what they were doing with him. And not once did a nurse leave that room after vitals or whatever it was they were doing with him. Did they not ask us as a family, is there anything that you need? Can we get you anything? Are you okay? Do you need towels? Do you need bedding? Do you need a Coke? I mean, whatever it was. I mean, they are just the most compassionate, caring people here. And we are so fortunate that he was able to come here for his care, and they helped him survive. I mean, and Bree is family now. She has absolutely become part of our family, and that's because we had a connection to begin with. She's from our hometown, so it made it even easier to connect with her. Not that we don't love all of the nurses, and I mean, Abby and Mason were the first two nurses that we had, and Bree was the charge nurse, and I mean, they got us through those first very difficult days,
Sure.
and that's why we asked to have them here. So.
And Mason.
Yeah, that's why I said Abby and Mason. They
Well,
were.
yeah, and Mason, I know you were there when he was admitted, and then what is that like when you admit somebody and then they're kind of on their way and they're here for so long? Do you continue to check in and see how a patient like Kurt's doing?
Yeah, it's so satisfying. Someone showed me a few weeks ago, whenever Kurt was at physical therapy, him starting to walk, and just being able to see that and see, where he started that first day to today. It's really, really a great thing.
I bet. Bree, I have a question about, we think of someone laying there, they're losing muscle, they're losing their muscle. How quickly does someone start losing muscle when they're stuck in bed like Kurt was?
Yeah, surprisingly it's quicker than you think. It can be almost 12 to 24 hours. I feel like I've heard a day in bed is a week of
that quick
mobility needing outpatient. Yeah, so it's amazing.
So when a patient is in the ICU, you're focused on the critical illness, but when do you start considering things like muscle loss and then the functional skills? Because they're heading off to physical therapy eventually.
We try to get physical therapy going as quickly as possible. They have came to see patients on the ventilator. They've really just tried to get on top of it as quickly as possible.
Valerie, what were some of the other big turning points that you remember that showed just maybe some small signs and then maybe eventually the big signs that Kurt was finally recovering?
Each step that they made taking him off of a machine, whether it was the continuous dialysis or the ventilator and switching him to a trach, all of those machines that we were able to eliminate from his room was a big relief for us as a family, because we knew that if he was no longer needing those, if they thought he was well enough to be taken off of those machines, then there was a chance that he was going to be able really to fight this and survive. But it seemed like, I mean, he had every complication you can imagine. It was, even though he was getting better, there was always a setback of some sort, but he conquered it and is doing great now. I mean, he's truly a walking miracle.
Well, before the walking, even before maybe the sitting up, Abby, what do you remember some of those signs that he was starting to come around?
I mean, kind of similar to what she was kind of saying, like once he started kind of waking up, more coming to, following commands, and actually like kind of maybe sort of being aware, even if you may not fully remember everything. Like she was saying as well, like, you know, coming off of every machine and everything like that. I personally really only had him when he was like super sick, super early in his mission. So it was just kind of hard for me to see, other than when I'd peek in and see how things are going, or check on you, or help turn you, like all that sort of stuff, to see like how you're progressing for how long you were with us. So.
What do you remember? What were some of those big moments?
Yeah, I think it's the little moments. It's the day in and the day out. I remember he was on continuous dialysis, and I remember getting a text from one of my coworkers saying that Kurt is off the dialysis machine, and we had to prone you for a little bit to help better oxygenate. And that's just where we take a patient who is on the ventilator and place them face down, so that they can better oxygenate and make it a little easier to breathe. But when we didn't have to keep doing that anymore, that was a huge success. And we would like it to be a trajectory upward, but it's ups and downs and ups and downs, and you have hurdles to go over. So every little hurdle you have to hold on to, and hold on to those wins.
Big wins. What do you remember? What were your first memories when you came off the ventilator?
Not being able to move a muscle, like a vegetable state, and couldn't talk, so that was frustrating, but at least I was glad to have my eyes open and see what was going on. I didn't know.
How were you communicating with your family? You guys said you were like playing charades or something.
It was rough. Yeah, because all I could do is just mouth something. I couldn't talk, so they used apps on the phone and pictures, and it was still very frustrating for me.
We're not good at reading lips or playing charades. It was a very frustrating time for all of us.
The things little things you don't realize you take for granted, being
Yeah.
able to communicate.
So many things, yeah.
So you eventually recovered enough to where you could sit up. That was a big moment. Let's look at one of the first moments that you got to use your legs.
Do it again. Holy cow. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Kicker. Yes.
It's tiring, I know.
I know. Yeah.
So clearly this is a lot of work for you, Kurt, but nurses, how long did it take before he could even just sit at the edge of the bed? I mean, how long is that, before you could just work up to just sit at the edge of the bed, move your leg up one time, let alone stand up?
I think it's all kind of dependent on obviously the length of time that, someone is on the ventilator, and how long you think, like a lot of people don't realize, like, I'm a lot weaker than I realize, and so and they're like, I can do it, I got it, but it's a lot different than when you get to that point. So I mean, I could probably take at least a couple of days to a week plus till they're like, sitting up good and just in the bed, like, and they're in a chair, and then getting to the edge of the bed and actually holding themselves up without physical therapy and occupational therapy, just holding them, because a lot of times they're just gonna topple to the side or topple to the other side. And so I feel like it does take a lot longer than you think too, so.
Kurt, what do you remember about that moment? Just
That video there, I mean, you just have to super concentrate on moving any muscle. I just had to stare at my leg or my hand to move it. I mean, it just really had to concentrate.
Concentrate. Was
Yeah.
it frustrating not being able to?
It was very frustrating.
To make your body do what it normally would
As
do?
you've seen the video, I was humped over. I couldn't even sit up straight.
Yeah.
The nurse behind me was holding me.
You were so determined.
Yeah.
So determined.
Yep, I did. I wanted to do it, but.
Well, we have got a lot more to cover. If you have any questions for Kurt, for Valerie, for any of the nurses today, just please ask. You can drop your questions in the chat on YouTube or Facebook. You can email the Medical News Network. That information is there on your screen. At a certain point, Kurt, you were well enough to leave the hospital, but not well enough to go home. You were transferred to the health system's acute inpatient rehab unit, and we caught up with one of your physical therapists and one of your occupational therapists. I know you've been working really, really hard with all of them over there. Here is what they had to say about what it's been like working with you.
Despite having a lot going on medically and physically and emotionally, he had this upbeat attitude, he and his family, and it was a good time working with him.
Kurt was one of those patients that you knew from the start he had the right attitude to make the progress that he did.
One of our first sessions, we were just working on trying to get his socks on, and he didn't realize how difficult it could be just to bring his leg up to his opposite knee and put that sock on. And just seeing the determination in his face to bring that knee up, and every single day it was a little bit better to where he could finally bend down and put a sock on.
We always joked about that there was always someone that had it worse than him, and that was good motivation for him to make the progress he did.
Well, rehab is hard work, it's painful, but what really was the hardest part that you remember?
Probably just getting out of bed the first time, standing up the very first time was super hard. Just nothing wanted to work the way I wanted it to.
Yeah,
So.
just frustrating. But you were determined, and you've shared with us that walking your daughter down the aisle, just a huge motivation. Nurses, do you notice just a difference in patients when you know that they have something big motivating them? Mason, I'll just start. I want to ask you. I mean, when you know someone is just really has a big goal, does that really change the way you relate to your patients?
Yes, I think that it does. I think it, in a way, for us nurses makes it easier to, we both have this common goal with the patient, and we can work alongside them to get them to whatever, the goal is. And for him, it was walking down the aisle. So for us in the ICU, it was really good to get him to the physical therapy part where he could actually work towards that and reach that goal.
Abby?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Mason that, if there's something motivating them, whether like for him it's getting to a wedding or getting to your birthday or someone else's birthday or a big holiday, I've noticed that too, like just getting to Christmas or something like that, that definitely helps people to be like, if I can just make it to this point, maybe I can go even further than that, so.
You agree?
I agree,
Yeah.
definitely. We have patients that we have hosted a wedding. We have let you see the dog, and all these things. We are wanting the best for our patients. We are wanting to help them accomplish their goals, such as walking his daughter down the aisle.
Yeah, before you walked your daughter down the aisle, you had your dog come see you. Tell us about your dog
That was
visit.
my first day that I actually got to go outside since I've been in the hospital.
And what was that like, seeing your dog?
That was awesome. She was a little skeptical of the wheelchair, but once they picked her up and she knew it was me, she jumped in my lap and started whining and licking and kissing me.
That was it.
Yeah, it was pretty emotional.
I know.
I hadn't seen her for so long, and she sleeps with us every night, so.
Yeah, that was, well, it had been a long time, because when you add it all up, from the first emergency department visit to leaving rehab finally, how long were you away from home?
55 days.
55 days.
He went in on my 55th birthday, and we went home on the 55th day. So God has had his hand in this every bit of the way. I mean, there's just been too many coincidences that he's shown us that Kurt needs to be here.
Well, no wonder you're so close with all these nurses. Right?
Heck of a birthday present, huh?
Yeah, right.
We were with them for weeks. And
Yes, you sure were. Are you doing any outpatient rehab? What kind of exercising are you able to do at home to keep this going?
Yeah, I was going to rehab 3 days a week, but I was excelling there, so now I'm down to 2 days a week, and I'm pretty physical. I'm tired of sitting in the house, so I've been out moving around outside and doing some exercise and just staying active.
Yeah, yeah. And when's the wedding?
September 6th.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got to get ready. Stay strong.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I want to get to some comments and some questions from our viewers. Jill wants to know what you were doing with the cans and the shirt in the therapy video when you were like stacking the cans and moving the cans around over there in therapy.
That was probably the very first thing I did there. Was setting them on the table, trying to set them up on a box, and just see if my mobility or strength or I guess control, and it was really tough.
Was it?
And then when I did it at the end, it was like super easy.
Kind of tried to simulate things that you might be doing at home,
Right.
moving things from counters to counters, and
yeah, they had hid stuff all over the kitchen in the rehab room, and I had to find it and put it in the proper place. So it was interesting, along with picking laundry up off the floor and putting it in the laundry or the washing machine.
picking up laundry. Probably like that.
I did. I said he doesn't do that at home. Maybe it's a new task.
Good. Get after it. Get after it. We have a comment from Christine saying that we are so thankful for the wonderful care KU gave us and brought our brother back. Another comment from Jen. The health system is amazing. Kurt, you are a miracle and a blessing. We're so thankful for the wonderful care our dear friend received. Question, Stu says, are families allowed to stay with ICU patients, and does their presence help?
Yeah, they definitely can stay. We have like a couch and a recliner in there, and so usually we leave it to like 2 to 3 at a time, but they are definitely allowed to stay with them. But I think it just helps give them some peace to be able to see them and make sure how they're doing overnight, because I feel like sometimes things just happen overnight and that gets missed, and in communication sometimes. And so I think it's just helpful so she can communicate or see him and make sure she feels good that he's doing okay. But also for you just to have, I think just having a presence, a familiar presence in the room, even if you don't notice that it's there, it's helpful for people just having community support no matter who it is, whether it's family or friends or whoever it is. So yeah.
I was just going to say that they accommodate in the room for 2 people to be there, but they were beyond helpful because there was 5 of us, my son, his fiance, our daughter, and his sister and I. And so there was 5 of us all together, and we literally, none of us left the hospital for the first week because they told us when they admitted him that first week was going to be touch and go. We didn't know if he was going to survive, so we didn't want to leave. And 2 of us would stay in the room and the other 3 would find a couch in the lobby or something, and they'd give us blankets and pillows, and we would go crash there for a few hours. So, I mean, there's
know how long you're going to end up being there.
Right. I mean, yeah, we stayed, so we weren't leaving.
You weren't leaving. Well, I've just loved sharing this story, and I'm just so glad you guys are here.
I had a good support system.
You sure did. You sure did. Well, we're going to wrap up this program, but we're going to do it with Mason. Mason, come on down and join us. Come give some hugs to Kurt and Valerie. But I want to start, Bree, with you. What do you want the big takeaway from this story to be?
I think one thing that really shines with Kurt is his attitude and his willingness to work so hard. And then alongside that, his people, like his community, his family. I just remember all of the stories, like in the ICU on the ventilator, we don't get to know, like the first time I heard your voice was when I saw you in the rehab, so we don't get to know the patient. So we hear their stories of when you guys met and that he's your mechanic and just all the shenanigans he and his sister would play and how amazing of a father that he is. So.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, give your hugs. Well, what's the big takeaway from this story? I know you touched so many lives, and I know you've seen so many great stories. But what really stands out with this one?
I think it just really affirms the job that we do and how it's hard sometimes, but I think it's always worth it. And when we can see stories like this, it makes what we do really rewarding.
Well, we're celebrating nurses this week, so we're celebrating all 3 of you and beyond at all of your teams. Abby, what's the big takeaway from this story?
I mean, I definitely agree that, you know, his community was probably the biggest thing to help get you through this, and just in general, your attitude and how your mind was doing. Like, that's really, really important for people to get through these really, really hard times. But also our own staff with each other, because for us, it's hard for us to see this happen to just ordinary people that, you know, have, you know, a lot of good things happening for them. So why does it happen? And I'm glad that we as nurses can have support from each other and all of our people as well, just to help get us to give the best support and care that we can every day. So.
Well, I know you had so many people on your list, and I was just so glad when you said, when these 3 names popped up, that all 3 of them could be here.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That was so great. They jumped at the chance,
I
so
will
thank
say
you.
that
I'm so happy.
The nurses here are phenomenal. The doctors, I mean, the whole staff, the PT, everybody, just, it was a great experience. For that end, I mean, my end wasn't great, but it was just made it the best. Always happy-go-lucky nurses, always in a good mood, always took care of everything.
Well, thank you.
The whole staff.
Well, we just appreciate you
The hospital's awesome.
sharing, and we're just glad you're doing well.
I'm happy to be here still.
I know you are. I know you are. Valerie, what do you want the big takeaway from your family's story to be?
We as a family are advocating for people to get their flu shots and their pneumonia vaccines, because we were told that if he hadn't had his flu shot, he might not have made it as long as he did. And just hug your loved ones every day. Tell them how much you love them, because you never know when the last day is going to be. And literally, we proved that because Lauren was with us on Sunday night. We went home from the hospital. She thought he was fine. And Monday, she barely made it back in time to see him before we may have lost him. So it's tell your loved ones you love them each and every day.
Can't end it any better than that. Thank you. Thank you to all of our guests today. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks to our viewers for your questions and your comments. Have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Sickle cell disease is painful, expensive, and now curable. I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Open Mics with Dr. Stites. The breakthrough treatments that rework a person's own blood cells. Learn how they work and meet one woman eager for anything that can relieve her pain. Wednesday at 8.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now everywhere podcasts are available.